What's up guys, this is Connor with Guns and Stuff, and in this video today we're going to look at 9 versus 40 versus 45, but we're not going to do it like most other YouTube videos that I've seen. I was kind of looking on YouTube the other day and a good idea popped in my head. So if you put in 9 versus 40 versus 45, you're going to find a ton of videos on, usually it's just guys kind of talking about the calibers and what they do differently and them shooting like cinder blocks or some sort of meat or something, like a pack of chicken or something. And what they don't really show how the gun shoots in your hand. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little drill here. We're gonna take a 9, a 40, and a 45, and we're gonna get times and split times of which is faster. So you would think 9mm would be the fastest. My hypothesis is I don't think the times are gonna vary that much. So yeah, we're gonna do a little drill here. We're gonna shoot a few guns and we'll show you guys the results. All right, so how we're gonna do this kind of unscientific test is we're going to shoot 4 different pistols at the same target. We're gonna shoot 5 rounds 3 times out of each gun. So in my hands here, I hold my Glock 17. We're doing this gun because it's gonna give us kind of a baseline or a control for this test. I should shoot this gun the best. It is mine. I've shot a lot of rounds through the gun, but nothing ever goes how you'd expect. So the Glock 17, we're gonna shoot a 5-round group, get the score and time, or just the time and the split times, load up again, shoot 5 more rounds and do it again. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna give us kind of an average. So instead of just doing it once, we're gonna do it 3 times. And we're also gonna do it with another shooter too. So that's gonna be interesting. So the Glock 17, and then the other guns that we're gonna use for this, the other guns that we're going to use is going to be the XDM. Now, the reason we're using the XDM, I'm gonna put them all side by side here. You can see the frames are all the same. So what that's gonna do is that's not gonna give us, usually 45 guns have a bigger frame than their 40 and 9mm counterparts, but the XDM's all the same frame. So the guns are gonna feel the same in our hands. They should shoot pretty similar, so we're not gonna get a big size difference because the bigger the gun, more surface area in your hand, and it's gonna be a little bit easier to shoot. So again, we have the XDMs in 40, 9, and 45. And then we have the Glock 17. So let's get the test started. All right, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be 5 paces away from our target. And then something that you guys need to keep in mind is you need to have the proper grip and you need to be aggressive with these guns, or else they are going to throw you around. So if you take a brand new shooter who's never shot before and they shoot a 9mm with relative ease and they do go up to a 45 or a 40, it is gonna kind of move them around a little bit more. So you need to keep that in mind throughout this video, is when I'm doing this, I'm gonna try my best to be very aggressive and be dominant with the gun, because the grip of the shooter and how aggressive they are is going to make a difference in the long run. So that's something that you guys need to keep in mind. Without further ado, let's start shooting. All right, so before we start this, one more thing I'm gonna mention is we do not have holsters for all these guns. So we're gonna kind of just go from a low ready. So the buzzer's gonna go, then we're gonna get the times, and then we'll talk about it. You ready? That's 207. 2.24. 2.04. All right, next up is the XDM 9mm. 2.18. 2.09. 2.14. All right, now XDM 40 caliber. 2.11. 2 seconds flat, 200. 2.06. All right, Springfield XDM, Lord's caliber. This is easier to shoot than the 40. Just throwing that out there. 2.19. 2.07. 1.96. 'All right, so I just wrapped up my part of that test. The numbers were, I haven't dove into the numbers yet. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the numbers are not that drastically different, if at all. The caliber that was, I guess, the most difficult to shoot was the 40. I guess I felt it the most, and I guess it moved my wrist more than the 9, and surprisingly the 45. But we're gonna let the other shooter go, and we'll see his numbers, and then we'll wrap the video up. On the buzzer. All right, so this is my buddy Baton. I should have introduced him before he was shooting. What level of experience do you have shooting? Like, are you do you shoot handguns a lot? Are you like new to it? Are you, I mean, what?
I've been shooting for a while, but not shooting in a way or competition shooting or kind of speed. I've been shooting just to have fun, really.
So shooting today, was that like faster than you've ever shot, or was, I mean, what? How did you kind of take that drill that we did? Was it just, you just kind of did it?
It was different. Slower and slower as I kept doing it, I got used to doing it, and it wasn't that hard.
So when talking about shooting the 40 versus the 9 and the 45, what was the biggest difference that you felt like shooting? Like, was one of them like, oh man, this is like way slower, or it kicks more? I mean, what do you think?
Really, the 40 probably was my least favorite.
Okay, why? What about it was your least favorite?
Just how, with the recoil.
So it was more snappy than the others? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you guys noticed, his times, we'll put it in the video, his times went slower and slower with the calibers, being, I don't want to say an inexperienced shooter, but not as many rounds downrange as me. I mean, we can both agree to that. So the newer shooter, his times went down as the caliber went up. And I don't know if 40 or 45 was his slowest, but my times were almost the same for every caliber. So that's why I wanted a new shooter, because that just goes to show that, you know, if, not saying you weren't aggressive enough, or it's just with time and practice and how much shooting you have. With me, I control the recoil a little bit better than you. And you can agree to that, you know? So I thought that was interesting, and I think what he did was perfect, because one shooter, the numbers stayed kind of the same, and then the second shooter, the numbers kind of drooped a little bit as it went to 40 and 45. So let's do some math with those numbers, get some averages, and talk a little bit about that. Okay, so I'm back from the range, and I kind of crunched all those numbers down because we did the overall time and the split times of each round. Now, one of the reasons I did this is kind of like I said earlier, everything you see online is like kind of a ballistics test. It's not really, at least on YouTube, it's more of a ballistics test, and it's not quite, you know, what the shooter feels or what the shooter does. So I thought to myself, you know, 5 rounds on a target pretty quick, trying to keep the shots pretty controlled, and getting the split times would be a good way to kind of show that. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone do it. So do with this information what you will. This is not a very super scientific test. This is just something that I'm kind of curious about. Because even I say it when people come into the range and they say they've never shot, or they're very, very new, and, you know, they ask about, you know, caliber like 40 or 45 or 9. Even I say it, you know, the 9mm is more controllable than a 40 or 45. And I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, I wonder if it would really be that much of a difference if, again, you have to be aggressive with the gun. If you are just, you know, not really being too aggressive and you have a kind of a soft grip, the 45 and the 40 are going to kind of throw you around a little bit more, and these numbers would kind of be, I think, higher. So something to keep in mind, the shooter has to be aggressive and, you know, have a good firm grip on the gun and just rip those shots off. And from the times here, we're going to go over mine first. So let's bring it up here. Pardon my chicken scratch handwriting. So with the Glock G17, the average time of the 3-1s was 2.11 seconds to get 5 shots on target. Average split is 0.36. So, like I said, that G17 was kind of going to be a baseline, I guess, or kind of a control. So you can see those numbers there. Now, to the XD9, you can see the times were practically not different at all. The split times were a little bit longer on the 9mm XDM. So there's those two. 2.13 average time on the XDM9. And the split time of 0.427. And what the split time means is the time between shot 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So I guess that's how fast I was getting the rounds off. So 0.36 on the Glock, 0.427 on the XDM. Now this was surprising. Once we move up to the 40 caliber, my average time went down and my split time went down from the XD9. So you can see there, and there's all 3 of the numbers in frame. Still, though, they're pretty darn close to the same. My fastest rounds off were still on the Glock 17. So now let's get to the 45. You can see at the bottom there. almost the same. These numbers are, I mean, I shot the 45 faster than I shot the XDM 40. So those numbers are, in my opinion, for an average shooter, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. So that kind of answered my personal question that I had going into this video. And what you take away from this video might be different from mine or from what I take away. But 40 versus 9 versus 45, my times were not really different at all. Nothing that you would be like, oh, you know, the 45 shoots much slower in his hands than the Glock or something like that. So again, there's all the numbers. Now, the reason I wanted to have a second shooter is because I wanted to have someone that, and I'm not trying to make myself sound like the greatest shooter because I know I'm not. I wanted to have somebody that hasn't had as much experience as me or as many rounds down range as me to see how those times would change. And this is kind of more of what I thought would be a typical, by the way, his name is not actually Baton, that's a nickname. These are kind of more reminiscent of what I thought would have happened. So let's start with his Glock 17 run. 2.65 average time. That's overall to get 5 shots on the target. Average split was 0.418. So then let's go to the XDM9. His average time was a little bit higher, but his split time was a little bit higher, so he was getting those rounds off a little bit slower going from the Glock to the XD. Now let's go to the 40. So you can see 0.58 and 0.65 up to almost 3 seconds. So a little bit slower there on the 40 caliber pistol for the average time. And then average split, you can see went up, pretty, not significantly, but it did go up a little bit. So XDM 40 for him, 0.59 seconds on the split. And then let's go to the XDM 45. So his average time was 3 seconds. Average split was 0.54. So there's all of his numbers. So you can see it did kind of, right here was pretty close to the same. And then once he got to the 40 and the 45, his times did slow down a little bit. But again, I told him, I said, hey man, like you got to be aggressive and get those shots off quick. And he's not really used to that, that's not really something that he does a lot. He's just kind of a, just kind of a shooter, just an average, I would say, I guess an average shooter. But yeah, there's his times, and I thought this was very interesting. So you can see my times versus his. So mine, I guess, were a little bit more consistent all the way through. And then you get, I guess, a newer shooter, or I guess in my case, a younger shooter who's not quite as experienced. And the times do change a little bit, but I mean, we're talking 2.65 to 3 seconds. So that's, 0.4 of a second slower. So take this information with what you will. This is a video that I'll put the times right there. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. And I thought it was very interesting just to, get the times, because it's not uncommon for people to say, oh, the 9mm shoots softer, or you can get more shots off faster with 9mm. And again, in a defensive situation, I don't know. I've never been in a situation like that where my adrenaline is going and, are you going to have the proper grip? Are you going to do everything exact? I mean, we were doing it on a closed range, pretty controlled environment, and these are the results that we got. So from here, the main thing to me, to my times is, I can shoot all of them very similar when it comes to time. Then the next step for me would be how many bullets can I fit in a magazine and what is the price of shooting. So that's why I like to shoot 9mm. I can fit, more rounds in the magazines than 40 or 45, so I can have more rounds, on my person, for my carry pistol. More ammo is good because I feel like in a defensive situation, that ammo is going to go very quick when your adrenaline is up and you're got a bunch of things on your mind. And then also, again, it's price. I mean, the 9mm is cheaper for me to shoot, and I can shoot more of it, and that will make me better. Depends how you shoot, but generally, the more that you shoot, say you had one person, person A and person B. Person A shoots, 10,000 rounds a year, whereas person B shoots, 2,000. I'll bet you most of the time, person A that has more rounds downrange is going to be generally a better shooter than person B. Now, that could be kind of a broad generalization. That's just how I think of it. So, yeah, guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. I kind of wanted to get away from shooting things, like cinder blocks or, whatever people shoot to see how far the bullet goes in the target or whatever. I wanted to actually get the guns in hand, shoot them, and get times and split times to show you the difference. So, again, there's the numbers. I'll post them in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one.